Hello, everyone. Welcome. Um, I'll leave 1 minute, as always, for people to log in and for me to do my technical checks and make sure that everything is working. Because last time we didn't have comments coming in until almost the end. So, yes, let's make sure that LinkedIn is in our favor this time. By the way, you probably see me from a non very professional camera. This because of this cable, HDMI. We don't love them. We hate them. Doesn't work. So you will see me from my MacBook camera, and that's absolutely fine. Um, yes, let's leave the delay to catch up with us. Very excited for today. As I'm talking for the first time on this podcast with a director, and a director that I really love his work, and I'm very excited to ask him questions, learn from his knowledge, and hopefully you learn stuff from his knowledge and experience too. Let's see. Put any comments in, just for me to see that comments are coming in and to make sure that everything works fine. And as soon as that happens, we'll start. Lovely. Cool. I can see comments coming in there. Let's make sure we can see it on our platform too. Give me 1 second. Great. Yes. Perfect. So, for everyone who joins this type of live streams for the first time, I'm not doing them for long now. It was since the start of the year. This is the third episode. We're busy with projects and stuff like that. So, the commercial break is mainly to give a spotlight to people who work behind the scenes and behind the camera, people who work across commercial work. So, that would be either people who work in the agency side, in the production side, maybe one day even on the client side. But for now, we focus on advertising and production. Lovely. Thank you very much, Gavin, for confirming. That's really helpful. So, yes, so basically, we are bringing people from different aspects of the whole process that might be creative directors or creative directors from agencies, to copywriters, art directors, etc. And then to any kind of people on the production side. It might be people, producers, executive producers, directors, as today, DOPs, as we had the last time, even down to voiceover artists, as it was on the first episode. In general, we'll try to give the opportunity and shine a light on everyone who is part of the process, because we are part of a team sport at the end of the day, and it's a collaboration between many different people. So, without wasting any more time, let me introduce you today to our wonderful director, Henry, and let me let him in. And there he is.
Hello.
How do you feel about my introduction? Am I too
I loved it, man. It's
am I
bringing a tear to my eye.
experienced? Lovely, amazing. So, Henry, give us an introduction to yourself before we start.
Hey, yeah, of course. So my name's Henry Dean. I'm a director in London, living in London, working in the UK and kind of around the world. I've been doing this work in the industry for 10 years now. About 7 of those years as a quote unquote proper director. And I would say the last 5 years, almost 5 years, has been kind of exclusively in the commercial and branded content space. I do a lot. I'm self-employed. I'm independent. Not signed currently to a roster in the UK. I have been signed to rosters in the past. Um, and yeah, I'm happy to be here. I do quite a wide range of different types of work, which I'm sure we'll touch on. And I just like being creative. I'm a photographer as well. I do some writing. I just love to bring ideas to life, and I remember how much I relished advice and insight like this, especially when I was coming up, but still now. And I love to try and be specific and offer something actionable and actually insightful. So I hope we can do that today.
We will, and that's why we're a good fit, because I'm the same. I'm like, let's focus more on the work and what helps produce great work, and less on
Exactly.
all the selling stuff. So you say you're for the last 5 years you're working primarily on the commercial and brand content world. Why did you choose that path, for everyone who is listening?
Um, I mean, there's a few reasons, but primarily money, if I'm honest. Um, like I'm not a super money driven person, but it's the I would say, at least for me, it seems like the branch of filmmaking that offers like a sustainable full-time job for me. And that's not to say that I'm not interested in making non-commercial films and doing all sorts of other projects. So I definitely am, but I know that if I want to make a living in London, a very expensive city, as a director, I have to be doing commercials. Like there's there to me at least, in my view, there's no other way for me to do that unless I just got a full on other job and then made films on the side. So I was,
Absolutely.
yeah, I was like working, I was doing the work in kind of music and culture stuff for maybe about, well, music, culture, and like other just random, like whatever I could get my hands on basically for about sort of 4 or 5 years before I really pushed into commercials. And like commercials are just the type of projects that have also seemingly like healthy, I mean they're not all great, but healthy and like appropriate budgets too. And I'm also a big believer in people getting paid for the work they're doing appropriately. So that's the thing as well, like I don't like asking for favors. But then also
Yeah.
on like there is a creative side to commercials that I really like. It moves very quickly, which I love. I don't like lingering on a project too long. I like being able to move fast and get work done and make snappy decisions.
I think it's a very fast paced world. Like I was reading last night. I actually commented on it. It was a post that was saying that AI is going to change. I will go to that topic later on, but AI is going to change filmmaking forever, and agencies are reluctant to it because at the moment they make the process as long as possible in order to be able
Mm,
to charge as much as possible. And I was commenting. I was like, you have no idea in what tight turnarounds
yeah,
everyone works. Like whoever I have in production, they will always ask me for one thing: give me more time. I need time
yeah,
to do
yeah.
my job properly. To touch on that, also, it's like it's very interesting what you say about making a living, because I feel two things. One is commercial work is thriving on our industry is thriving on big cities, and
Mm-hmm,
big cities are expensive because
mm-hmm.
people will be like, well, why do you have to live in London then? Well, go somewhere cheaper. Where if you go somewhere cheaper, there is not much work going
Yeah,
on there. Yeah, it's like it's not a job you can do remote. Like you have
precisely.
to be there.
And even in like luckily as a director, once you get to a certain level at least, and I feel like I'm maybe just getting to that level now, you could in theory live maybe not anywhere, but somewhere within touching distance of one of these bases. And it's like, okay, your shoot might not always be in your home city, which is a massive like privilege once you can get to that. But yeah, for the first maybe 5, 10, or however long it takes years of your career, or depending on what corner of the industry you're working, because it's very broad, you have to be in the cities. And you know what? Whenever we do shoot in other places, and I'm like chatting to the crew, the local crew, even if they live in like a relatively big city, like pretty much any other European city, to be honest, apart from London, even if it is a production hub of sorts, like London in Europe, I would say, in terms of just the volume and the amount of work going on, even though the industry is a bit unstable at the moment, it's still probably the most viable city. Like I did a shoot in Madrid last year, capital of Spain, and Spain is a very currently servicing a lot of European production. And they work a lot, but they're still just like doing bits and they're like desperate to kind of latch on to what feels like the more global commercial industry. So yeah, it's tough, but you're right. There's a massive downside of just like the cost
Yeah,
of
yeah,
living. Yeah.
absolutely. So just to dive straight in on the commercial work
Sure.
specifically, you you are working with a production company, but both you and the production company are usually working, or you might sometimes directly work with the agency. So
Hmm.
if we are talking about the agency, let's say that they provide you with a script or a creative brief for a project, how do you
Hmm.
usually try to approach something like that in the first sight of it?
Well, I mean, like nowadays, my first sight of it is usually given by either an agent of some sort or by the company as like an intermediary, as like, are you interested? So the first glance is just like, is this something I want to do? And at this stage of my career, it's probably going to be yes. And I say at this stage because, you know, even though I've done a lot, I'm still a relatively young director. Um, so I'm probably going to do it. But if there's something in the script that's like problematic or just massive red flags, then like no. Um, However, when I actually start working on it, I mean, there's a huge variety in terms of what you receive, and I think that's a relatively modern phenomenon, right? Like sometimes you'll get a really thought out full script, storyboards, everything's laid out pretty much of like this is how we want to do it. Other times you get a couple paragraphs, like a general idea of what the film is. So it depends where you are. Um, I like to try and put my own spin on it, and I've gotten more confident as I've got further in my career doing that. But at the same time, talking about everyone getting paid fairly for their job, like I also don't want to do the agency's job for them. Like sometimes you get in situations where it's like, oh, it feels like uh, they're just like getting you to write the scripts basically, and like that's not my job. So there's like a middle ground. But for me normally it's thinking like, okay, one, how can I elevate this? How can I make it feel like me? You know, I like to think it, I do a lot of stuff that's funny, even if it's not out and out comedy, so I'm like, how can I make this funnier? um, but I think the main thing realistically when you're then going to pitch on it or start working on it for me is like, what's the emotional through line? Because there always is one. Um, and it's kind of getting to the bottom of the story, even if the ad is quite broad and quite
Mm.
corporate, there still will, like, what's the hook? And that's, I think, something I learned from doing a lot of music stuff, even music performance stuff. Just thinking, okay, what is the emotional hook here? And then the next step is like, how do we support that with visuals, with what we're doing? So it's kind of like, yeah, my first response is fleshing it out, getting to the, okay, what is not even necessarily the story, but what is the story doing to the audience, or what do I think that is? And then the ideas start firing of like, how do we support that with visuals or with what we're actually
That,
making.
that's awesome. By the way, I laughed at some point because I see Joel's comment. He says, "You mean you guys don't sit in a pool of anxiety for weeks and weeks before the pitch?"
Oh, I
I
do.
mean,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think everyone does. I think if we go back to your point, which is like you see a brief, and at this stage of your career, you would probably be interested, unless you see some red flags.
Mm.
Can we touch on what those red flags usually are?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they can vary, and it can also vary region by region. If you as soon, oh, I froze. Am I still there? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're
Um,
still here.
as soon as you start working in other territories, you like obviously have to become sensitive to what different markets in around the world might want. That's one thing. Sometimes it's just like straight up, is there something, I don't know, offensive or kind of like morally wrong about this? In this climate, and being someone who cares about things that I care about, I have said no to a few projects on kind of more ethical and moral grounds. But usually that doesn't come into it, because realistically most commercials are relatively inoffensive. For me, a red flag would be a massive, like, they are trying to do way, way, way too much with not enough money, or something where I know if I take this on, I'm going to get screwed. And it's usually to do with that, like the amount of work involved for the money offered. Or maybe it's not even about the money, but like, in some markets, they will schedule for like a 24-hour day or a 20-hour day, and that's just not, like, no, you know, we can do it properly and do 2 normal days, but I'm not gonna like go in there looking at this massive idea with 8 scenes and thinking, yeah, we're doing that in 1 day. So those tend to be the red flags for me.
Also to first of all, just to pause there for a second. By the way, all of you, we are going to stop at the end if anyone has any questions, but I'm sure like people's schedules might be different. So we have a couple of topics we want to cover. But if you have any questions at any point, feel free to just add them in, and we will jump straight in and answer them. I think to your point, there are a couple of very important points there people need to consider and be aware of. First of all, is the shooting days. I think many people don't understand that don't know, because especially the early part of the process, that directors in commercials are getting paid based on how many shooting days you
For
have.
sure.
Like they have what can seem for some people like a very big fee that might be on a standard fee, usually at least in the UK world, it might be like 11, 12, 13,000 British pounds per shooting day, but then they don't get paid for
No.
anything else for their
So
effort. Like
essentially,
they might work
yeah,
on a project for 2 months and another 2-3 weeks on a pitch before those 2 months start, and for that
exactly.
amount of time they get paid that 13 grand at the very end, which is
And
like a lot to some
there's a
people, but it's not for a main
I mean, yeah, it
commercial.
sounds like a lot, but when you stretch it out over the course of multiple months living in a city like London, it's, I mean, when you're working, yeah, you get paid well for what you do. But yeah, there's also countless, you know, you lose more pitches than you win, just by the stats, by the number of people trying to do this. So there's a ton of pitches you don't get paid for. And then there's also all the time you're also just not working, like waiting for a pitch even to come in. And precisely, I see someone put a comment, they might do 3 commercials a year, and that's exactly right. Like, you don't do many projects. I work way less now than I did when I was, you know, 7 or 8 years ago, before I was largely doing commercials. But, you know, hopefully, fingers crossed, the projects you do are a little bit bigger, or you can pick up, you know, most directors I know have like at least a sporadic sideline of other work or income that they do.
Precisely. I think that's also very important to note for directors, the fact that many directors might also edit. They might do some post work in general just to cover a bit of their income, or be able to get a bigger size of the project, a bigger portion of the project that they're working on, because they will do also the post production or something like that.
For
But
sure.
it's also the fact for everyone to remember that directors are usually the biggest name on set, but in order to get there, they had to put many years of unpaid, huge effort, very low paid work. Like it's not like, you know, if in 1 year they make 100,000, it's not that the year before made 90 and the year before that they made 80 and they got gradually there. No, they for 5 years they might have made 30, which is for London it's minimum living wage, and then suddenly 1 year they must make it good, and also the year after that they might go back to 50 because they didn't have any
Yeah,
jobs. So
it's unpredictable. And I think realistically, as a director, until you are at the cream of the crop, which realistically, let's face it, in the commercial world, the cream of the crop is probably 20 global directors. Until you're at that absolutely elite, people are fighting over you stage, that's going to be the case.
yeah, absolutely. So if
It's
we
going to
go
be.
to Joel's question, just to answer that as well, what can agencies do better to make the director's life easier on the project? Green flags, so the opposite.
That's a really good question. I mean, I'll caveat everything I'm going to say throughout this whole thing by saying everyone's experience is different and every director is very different. So all of this is just from my point of view. However, what can agencies do better? I think have a fully complete idea when you are presenting this to a director, because as much as we love inputting our ideas and it should be an open collaboration, like, it's not our job to come up with the campaign. So I personally, like, if I'm going to come up with the ideas, I'll charge a daily, just a day rate writing fee, basically. So that would be the main one. Number 2 is agencies the best creatives and the best agency people I work with have experience of production as well, and like know the realities of actually making something. So I think having a realistic understanding of the production process, just in the way that I try and have a realistic understanding of like what they're dealing with a client. And then I think the third and like probably biggest thing is just trust. The best agencies I collaborate with are ones that know what they want, but also hire you and trust you to do that thing they're hiring
Yeah.
you for. Because I've done some jobs where at the end of it I'm like, why am I even here? Like they're just sort of doing everything they want to do and kind of not really listening to my input. And like I why are they even hiring me? Not many, but there have been a couple. So yeah, those three things I'd say.
That's great advice. And to come back to your point about the ethical side of it, it's not something I
Yeah,
had to
of
cover,
course.
but it's something I'm very passionate about, because
Yeah.
I feel like when people work in commercials, primarily what will drive you in is the financial benefit of it, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people have a very toxic relationship between the art and the money, and they feel
Of
that the
course.
two can never meet. And it's like as soon as you go to commercials, you sold your creative soul to the capitalist world
Yeah,
out there.
yeah.
And I'm always trying to communicate to people that you still have, and that's why they pay you a lot of money. You still have a very important voice as a creative.
Precisely.
Yes, you're a professional first. You have to deliver for a
The
brand
job.
and for what they want, but you have a voice and you have an opinion, and that comes before you say yes to a job. Like you have to think about. And I think like you can make good money and sell stuff that you would recommend to your friends as a product, and that's where the two is good, instead of just selling stuff that you're so opposed to ethically and morally.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And you do have to, I mean, there will be some people who don't have an ethical line, and like, to be honest, that's fine for them, to each your own. But for me, there is a line of like, yes, it's a job and I need to pay my bills and I'm doing this to earn a living. But, you do have to ask yourself sometimes, where is this money come from? Where is this
Yeah,
money coming from? And is that okay with me? Like,
yeah,
if I were doing any other job, would I apply for a job with this company? It might not be as strict as that, but yeah. And especially as I get older, even outside of work considerations, but as I just understand myself better and have a deeper and deeper understanding of what I stand for in life, I find those lines becoming clearer for me.
yeah, absolutely. Jonathan, to also cover your question, I think it's a very long conversation of how we both started, so I will leave that out. But I will talk about the spec ads, and I will ask
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
Henry, how do you feel, especially now that it's not at the start of your career, you get work coming in. How do you
Mm.
feel at that stage of your career spec ads are, and how, if you like them, how do you feel can benefit you
Yeah.
as a
I,
professional creative?
I mean, they could benefit you. Like, just making stuff benefits you. But for me, it's like, it's about the reps. I kind of look at it almost like an athlete training for their game or event or whatever. Like, the making stuff is just about the reps of doing stuff. Yes, you might make something great that opens a ton of doors for you or wins an award, whatever. But a spec ad specifically is nothing more than practice, because it's not a short film. It's not actually commissioned by the company, so you can't. It's not like you get the clout of the brand. So I think if you want to make it for practice, great, do it. Practicing anything is great. Get the bad films out the way. I made so much bad stuff for so long that no one will ever know about, but it's practice. However, if you're like actually looking to get into this, I gave somebody else this advice the other day. Instead of making a spec ad, either just like find local or small businesses or people online that you can just make videos for. That is a real thing. Even if you do it for very little money or no money, like, it's a real project that's serving a real purpose. Or make a short film, make a music video, make this stuff that is more art and expressive. But when you're making your short film, and by the way, when I say short film, it could just be something you make all by yourself with no money and no help. But like, think, okay, what in this serves a purpose that will be something in the commercial world? Like, is there a shot or a scene or a way I do something in this that serves a purpose in the commercial world? Because I'm not going to lie, for me, after spending 5 years without doing any basically commercial stuff, when I started thinking I want to do commercials, it was kind of like starting again, because music videos or random documentaries or like culture-based stuff or your own short films, unless they have something inherently specific and commercial about them, they mean nothing in the commercial world. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg kind of situation. If you want to do a spec ad, then do it, because you should just, if you're motivated to do something, do it. But I think there's this really great guy called Elijah, who used to run a quite successful record label here in London. I did a shoot with him, and he said something to me on this shoot. I can't remember exactly, but it was along the lines of like, build something on your own platform rather than putting everything you do on other people's platforms. And he was, I think, talking about Instagram, talking about music and that. But the ethos behind that stayed with me. Like, so instead of making a spec ad for Nike, make a short film for yourself about running, and like, do it how you would do a Nike commercial, but it's your short film.
Absolutely, and I think that you made one very good point there. I see many spec ads, especially in the YouTube kind of world, for very big, leading, well-established brands,
Pointless.
and like people, there is no point behind that, because there is that direct. The people you try to talk to, there is direct comparison with the actual pieces that exist out there, and
Precisely.
your thing is nowhere close, because you don't have the resources. You might have the talent, but you have no resources.
Of course.
And the second thing is, like, when it comes to spec ads, I feel like, for me, the only value I find on them is, especially if you get some work in the industry, is sometimes you might fall in the loop of starting your career doing a certain type of work. Let's say you do fashion for some reason, and then because you are good at it, you repeatedly get fashion work coming back to your place again, again, and again. And you won't say no, because it's good money and you enjoy doing it. But it might not be who you are as a creative or who you are right now. So then it might make sense to make a spec ad to get us out. And
to pivot.
Exactly, yeah. So if we go back to your point about, like, trying to add your voice as a director, basically, to a commercial work, like, how do you balance your creative vision? Because, again, people don't understand that from the time you win and the job is awarded to the final film, many things can change in between.
Oh yeah.
And where you were like 110% passionate about making this thing, you might end up being 60 or 70% because of how many layers changed in between. How do you balance your own creative vision with the needs of a brand and the stakeholders as a commercial piece?
It's a good question, to be honest. And I think I was so tied up, well, not so tied up, but I was more tied up in my creative vision earlier on in my career. I think ultimately with a commercial, you have to realize that even though you will take pride in it and you'll put your spin on it, it is there, like, you're making a product for a company. So it's their thing ultimately, and like, they're going to do what they're going to do with it. They're paying for it, and you kind of have to respect that. So you've got to like put that in a box and own that. However, like I mentioned before, you have to trust that you have been brought on to this project for a reason, and there's been this whole pitch process and everything, and they've chosen you. So you do have to learn to trust your taste, learn to trust what you think is good, and learn to trust your instincts with it. However, you're having those instincts with the context of the brand and the project in mind. There's no point in you like trying to do something that's completely off the mark. You're not a good commercial director if you're trying to do that. You can, and you know what, I often get hired to do projects that are like slightly outside the box for the brand, but that's like, they're going into it knowing that's what they want. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying to a brand, I want to completely rechange how your brand presents itself, because you are a tiny fleck of a cog in their big machine. So, there's that. But as you go forward, like you learn a bit more about having trust in what you want to do. And I've learned a bit more in the last year or two, I would say, to really approach it with a genuine, what do I think is good? Like, what do I think is good in the context of the project? But what do I want to do and execute here, as opposed to what do I think they want? I think that's a
Yeah.
distinction you have to, it's hard to make, and you can't make it without doing some projects, but you begin to realize. Then
Yeah.
on a more practical sense, I think it's just like picking your battles. Like, you're going to always get feedback. You have to become really comfortable with giving and receiving feedback and not taking it personally, and knowing when should I push back on this and say, well, actually, no, I think we should do this and this way. And when is it time to just be like, yeah, for sure, if you want it like that, let's do it like that.
And I think you have to choose your battles. Like you have to be, you're not going to win everything because at the end of the day, people need to feel good with the decisions they make too. So you have to be very selective. And I really like that, because I feel like at the start of your career, you have ego, and then you drop the ego, and then maybe you find the ego again, but from a much more healthier perspective later on, when you're like, your rate might be higher, you might be more of a premium director. So it's like, well, if they bring me on board, you know what I mean, they have to trust my stamp on it as a creative. Otherwise, why?
Exactly, precisely. And I do think, like, yeah, it is ego, but it is in like a healthy sense. It's in a sense of you're realizing that you are getting brought on board for that instinct you have, and it might not always align with the brand or the agency, whoever, and you have to learn to also become okay with that. Like, it's not about you, it's like your approach for this. And you always have to realize that the commercial you're making fits into a larger strategy that the brand or the agency has for this brand. So,
Yeah.
and you're rarely privy to that strategy, and you kind of don't need to worry about that the whole time. Like, you need to, if
Absolutely.
it's, yeah. So, yeah,
I agree.
picking your
So
battles.
if we by the way, Kieran, I see your question. I think the way we'll structure it is like we cover the part which is more the agency part. I want to touch more now on the filmmaking part and the
Practical.
production part, and then we can talk a bit about generic thoughts around the industry and what do we
Yeah,
think about.
that chat can
So
go on forever.
let's start with talent. Do
Yeah,
you enjoy working with talent? How do you find it? How
love
do
it.
you approach it, etc.?
I love it. And I mean, talent is a very broad term again. Like, it doesn't always necessarily mean a celebrity or a famous actor. Your talent could be someone that's never been on camera before. And I think it's important to recognize that as a director and realize that everyone is different. You know, there's no single approach to directing talent. However, it is still up to you to like figure out how to do it, right? And I quite like that early on in my career, because I was working in music and stuff like that, I worked with some pretty famous people, pretty big talent very early on. And it kind of got me super used to working with that kind of people. And then on the other side of the spectrum, I've always been somewhat of a people person. That's kind of how I got into this. So, you know I can read people quickly and understand them and feel like I have enough empathy, I guess, to like know how someone needs to be treated.
Yeah.
But I do think, like, if we're getting down to specifics, how you direct them kind of depends on the level of prep you have. Like, on a commercial, there's usually, at least on, you know, once you get to bigger commercials, then you might have more time. But on my level of commercials, which, to be transparent, budget ranges are probably anywhere from as low as £50,000, which for a commercial is very low, up to, the biggest commercials I've done are maybe £300,000 to £400,000, which is still in the low to mid range for a full commercial. So usually in that scale, there's no rehearsal or even interaction with the talent beforehand. Personally, I like it depends what it is, right? Normally, if there's a celebrity involved, you're kind of doing something very specific and you have to just sort of tell them, like, this is what we're doing. We need you to do this. However, if it's more actual acting, whether it's a celebrity or actor or everyday person, I kind of like to give them the freedom to do their thing, because if they're coming into this having just even understood what's going on and prepped and have any instincts, like, let's use that and then tweak it from there. That might be small tweaks, it might be massive, okay, we need to go a completely different route. And I think, yeah,
sorry, go on.
Well, I think that I find a trick for me is using verbs is really good, and this is something you kind of get taught as a director. So it's giving someone, instead of an emotion to play, you're like giving them a actual verb, a more concrete action, something they are trying to achieve in the scene, and how they express that, whether that's emotionally or physically or something, often comes out. However, sometimes you've got to be like, do it again with a bigger smile. You know, you have to be flexible enough to know what to do.
Yeah.
And you know, different types of talent will respond differently. Different types of celebrities even work differently. I was actually mentioning that athletes are often, I find in my experience, obviously everyone's different, but athletes are often easier to work with. And I think it's because they're used to being coached. They're used to being directed in their day-to-day life.
Henry,
and maybe
have you worked with footballers?
You know, I mean, I have, but not many. But I'm not going to lie. I don't want to put myself out of any work here, but footballers seem to be, in general, the least comfortable on camera genre.
I will say they are by
Yeah.
far the most difficult people to work when it comes to celebrities. Like,
Yeah,
they come
fair
from
enough.
5 minutes sitting there, they have
That's true.
no energy
The
to do
time,
anything.
yeah, the time thing is true, but that's, to be honest, that's often not on them. That's on their handlers and like the people who are organizing it. And yeah, and it often with the celebrities, it comes down to like, are they aware of their image and do they need to be protective of their image? Because that can change how you're doing a shoot quite
absolutely.
massively, and how they're willing to open up themselves.
I think you made a great point there. Like, sometimes celebrity seems much more scary because of the protective team they have around them. Like, when you talk to them,
Precisely.
the vast majority of them, they're lovely people. You will definitely find some that are extremely difficult, but let's be honest, that happens with every group of people in the world. Like, you know, a 10-20% will be difficult to work with. Like, so there is nothing wrong around that. Now, when it comes to the pre-production process, because I know you mentioned how much time you have, and Gavin, we will talk about the Dr. Martin suit as well. I'm just a bit concerned because many people might not have seen it. So let us know if you have any specific question around that, so we can give people a bit more context. So when it comes to your pre-production process, how do you like working with crew? Like, how do you involve them very early on, etc.?
Yeah, I like to. Again, it depends on the job, but definitely the heads of department, which, like, your producer is your main buddy on the whole shoot. Like, you're talking with them as you're pitching on it, as you're coming up with the ideas. So they're your main point of call. And then even before, like, for instance, I've just pitched on a job and we haven't found out about it yet, but I've already spoken to a DP, I've already spoken to a VFX house, I've already spoken to an editor, because I know it's going to be a tight turnaround and I want these people on it. And you need to start having those conversations, just scoping out, are you interested? Oh, on a logistical sense, are you interested and available? But also seeing, like, look, this is the idea. Because maybe they'll come to you with, oh, have you thought about doing this? And I think as a director, it's super important. That's partially why I love doing this, is like getting to work and dip my fingers into these pools of deep technical knowledge and like working with these people that are really great at their role and kind of orchestrating all of that for something great to come out of it. So yes, I do work with crew quite early on. I love it. I love letting everyone make something that feels like it's their creative work too. That's something I try and foster on my sets.
That makes sense. I think it's very important. Again, I think the ego thing plays quite a big role there. Of it's like being able to get creative input from other people, depending on the head of the department of the department they're in, but also being flexible. I think that's important thing we can
Exactly.
do for commercials. Like you would prefer to do everything by order, like a flat line, but sometimes it's more like
Not possible.
you have these
Everything is
messy things.
Yeah, everything's super condensed. And like it doesn't mean you have to also do absolutely everything that everyone else suggests. Like you're ultimately still steering the ship and you're the one working towards something, but I think especially when you're working on this compressed timeline, it's important to give people the space and opportunity to like flex their creative muscles.
Yeah, yeah,
Because why else are you hiring them? So yeah,
yeah.
getting them involved early, I think, is great.
And I think that will touch a bit, Kieran, your point as well about the industry. Do you find, I find often that because of the tight turnaround and people, directors especially, want to work with people they trust and they have worked with
Yeah.
before. So do you find yourself working a lot with the same team over and over again and just trying when someone is not available, or do you try to work with new
Um,
people?
I don't mind. I like working with new people, but you are right. Like you just inherently trust the people you know more, and you have carved your thing, and you've made what is your aesthetic or what you do as a director is also somewhat determined by these other um, creatives you're working with. So you kind of once you get to a certain stage, you're like, oh, I've got a job that wants. Um, it needs to look like real life, but beautiful real life. Well, this is the DOP that I work with that does that. Or you have another job that's like studio set build, it all looks like fantasy. Well, there's another DOP that does that. Or this wardrobe um, designer for one thing and that one for the other. So you you inherently at the beginning you have to work with new people. But I do like working with I like working with the people I like. However, I'm always open to working with new people. And again, the logistics of it often dictate that. So you are right.
Yeah,
I think you also get to know the more you do it when you look at someone's work or have like a preliminary chat with someone. You know what to look for in order to know if they can do the job. But to be honest, each
yeah,
job is different. The close collaborators, basically, on in my experience, the close collaborators, if I had to pick two, are the DOP and the editor. And so they will tend to be people I've worked with before. However, I also have a massive list on my Instagram of DPs and editors and production designers and all the roles who I've never worked with, but I save their work. And you know what? Sometimes when you're looking to hire people, I'll throw unknown names into the list, but the list will
yeah.
often be prioritized, right? So I'll go with the person I know first, but if they're not available, then let's approach some of these new people.
Because I think one very important thing, I mean, two important points that I think you can sometimes tell you can tell when a director is the same director across the same both projects, but they have used a different editor, for example. Like if you know the director well, you might be able to sense it when a different editor has been used. But also, I think you want to be fair. Like those people have helped you craft your career, and they probably did on
Yeah,
projects that the budget was not there. So when the work comes in and the budget is there, you want to reward them by giving it back to them because
precisely,
that's
precisely. And like ultimately, you like any workplace, you make friends with these people. You know, some of my closest friends are people I've worked with and met through work, and like you have the choice of who to work with, and you want to work with people you like and that you enjoy being around and that you feel creatively inspired by. I don't want to
yeah,
work with someone who's gonna like piss me off and drag me down. You know, not that I work with any crew that do that, but hypothetically. And don't get me wrong, you do have experiences with people where you work with someone new and it's not so good, and like you have to just chalk that up to it was, you know, it was an experience. What can I learn from it? And you know, maybe if I have the choice, I won't work with them again, and that's
yeah,
okay. Like I know there'll be
exactly.
people that won't want to work with me again, and like you come to realize there's so many people doing this kind of work that you can't take any of it personally. Like it just is what it
100%.
is.
100.
Yeah.
And especially when you have a difficult project, you need to have
Yeah.
your people both for time, but in all honesty, for vibes as well. Like, you might have a very difficult moment on set. It's so much more difficult to go to a person who knows you, and they will say a joke or they will do something, and you're like, you'll have that laugh on set, and you'll be like, okay, cool, I'm ready.
Precisely.
I'm ready to jump back in. And to add to that,
Precisely.
to add to that point, I think let's go to the Bobby's question, because I think that's a great question about mental health and how you protect your energy as a director.
Yeah, man.
How do you not burn yourself out when it's hectic?
By not putting myself, like, by not equating my sense of self-worth with my work, you know? Like,
I
I
love that.
love it. I love this, but it's a job. Like, I don't think someone that, whatever, works at a cafe is like getting stressed out when they're away from work. I mean, you probably are, because like I've worked in a ton of restaurants and got stressed out, but like, you have to remind yourself that, like, okay, this is all just our job. So like, I'm from a mental health point and not getting burnt out, that's what it is. I'm not a worthless human being because I haven't won a job in 6 months. Like, that's not how it works. um, However, on the flip side of that, how do you maintain a stamina is almost the exact opposite, right? As the director, and like, I'm trying to remember in this uh, session to really speak from a director's point of view. You set the tone, like, if you're the one stressing out and like angry, that's how the project feels. But if you are
Amen. I
enthusiastic,
love that.
yeah, but if you're
I
enthusiastic and happy and creative, like, that's the environment that's going to be fostered, and you have to remember that. Because yeah, if you're not excited and enthusiastic about it, then who the hell is? So that's how I keep myself going, even because you are right, like, you run out of stamina for sure. Projects drag on, but like, you don't need to diffuse that to everyone else. You need to maintain the care and excitement, because no one else is going to do it. And that thought alone drives me through. That, and knowing, like, what, some jobs are a ball ache, to, sorry for a lack of a better word, but some jobs get really stressful, but like, you're getting paid, man. And I'm like, I've done enough jobs in the trenches of filmmaking and in real life where it was so much worse and so much more boring and so much worse paid. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're getting
I,
paid to
I,
make a video. Yeah.
and I think that's a very important thing. Is like, when you accept a low paid job, ensure from the very start and be very clear that you have creative control over the job you're doing. There is no
Yeah.
reason of going into a job, not getting paid properly, and just following whatever crazy idea and last minute idea other people have for you. Like, either you
Mate,
get paid properly and you're willing to do that, you're willing to sacrifice your vision for what other people want, or paid, you need to have full creative control.
precisely. Like, get something out of it. And you know what? Also, learn something from the jobs you do. Learn something from your experience, because like, if people complain about, oh, I'm not enjoying this work, or like, I keep having arguments on set, and it's like, well, if you're going back and back to the same thing and expecting a different result, as they say, that's the definition of insanity. So like, especially as I get further into this job, I relish the opportunity to realize what went well and what didn't go well in this, and take
Mm.
that time, even if it's just mentally. You don't have to write it down or anything or share it, but take that time after a job to think, like, of each stage in that process, what went well and what didn't go well, and why. Be specific. I One of my early jobs when I was a teenager, I worked at Apple. I worked in the Apple store in Reading. And the best thing I learned from that job was actually in the training. And it's about feedback, and it's about giving and receiving feedback. And it's all essentially boils down to be specific. Like, just saying, oh, nice work to someone, okay, it's a nice thing to do, but it's a throwaway comment. Whereas if you can say, I really like how you communicated that, like, difficult bit of terminology to the actor without making them feel overwhelmed. Great. you know. And likewise, if it's negative as well, be specific. Don't just be like, oh, you're really pissing me off today. Say, if you've got a problem with someone, say to them like, look, you keep having loud conversations while we're trying to get hard work done. Do you mind just keeping it down? That gets you somewhere. And so like, do that to yourself as well. That's how you don't get burnt out and how you keep going. It's like, okay, even if something's really bad, know why it was bad and try and use that to inform your next project.
And doing that, you also like disassociate the situation, the problem, from the personality and the individual.
Honestly,
Like it's not a me versus you situation. It's us together versus a problem, and how do we solve it? How do we get there?
exactly.
That's so
Because
big.
the work is stressful. Like, it's inherently stressful. There's a lot of money riding on it. You're often trying to do stuff that's kind of difficult in a short period of time. And like, you all have to know that. Even on some of the nicest, best sets I've been on, where everyone's super friendly and working really well, there are like moments where things can blow up. But like, that's okay. You have to just listen to people. You have to be a good people person to work in this industry. And that is no more important as being a director. Like, sorry, that's not more important for anyone else than it is for a director. Like, you have to be able to work with people, and it's often up to you to orchestrate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like at the end of the day, our industry has a massive pool of creative talent, different people, but a pool of creative talent. Being nice to work with and making people's lives simple, let's not say easy, but simple, like straightforward stuff. It's so like honestly for everyone
Yeah.
who taking a job. If we go, another thing that is like always important for me for directors and trying to understand, because I see different approach. Like some people are very heavy on visuals and they love like
Mm-hmm.
set pieces and VFX and stuff like that, and some other people are more narrative led and a bit
Mm-hmm.
more on the actual story. Obviously, where the two worlds meet is the absolute best. But it's like what drives you more creatively? Are you more about the story person? Are you more about the visual set pieces? Like,
That's a very good question. At my heart, I'm definitely more of a story person, like story and performance. I kind of got into this work through writing and through like doing a bit of acting. But at the same time, I've always been a visual, artistic, creative person. So the visuals are definitely a side of it. I'm going to be boring and say it does come project by project. I and realistically, the idea and the story is at the core of it. However, in doing this work, if it looks like shit, then it's not worth anything either to me. And that's just that's my opinion. But yeah, it's hard. I think I like the visuals, but I'm not necessarily so worried about it being super techy and like filmmakery.
mm,
I want it to look nice, but that could be very simple, you know. So I think that's where I sit on the spectrum. But you are so right, though. Everyone has a real different background, and for some directors, being really techy is brilliant. Is like what they do, and that's why there are different directors to do different jobs.
yeah. And how do you find the shift between, because nowadays the social side and the online content is
Mm-hmm.
equally important as the
The whole
TV
thing,
side.
yeah.
So do you find like different from like let's say directing TV commercial from directing an online content
Mm,
job?
a
Like,
bit, a bit, but not really. Like, I've pretty much the whole time I've been in this industry has been when content was growing and then becoming the fully fledged format, I guess, shall we say, that it is now. So for me, there's not as much of a delineation. I think if I were 10, 15, 20 years older, there would be a much bigger difference. But for me, it's like the assets and the social side of things have always been a part of what I'm doing. So it's kind of
mm,
integrated. And I think as a director in 2025 and beyond, you can't poo-poo the assets, like those cut downs and the vertical videos and that's probably what people are going to see more than not. And if you're not bearing that in mind and not caring for those just as much as the real thing, then you're probably not as valuable. as a
Yeah.
director. So as much as it pisses me off sometimes having to worry about the framing of will this also sit nicely in a 9:16 vertical frame, be aware of it and build it into your prep and execute. That's my thing. It's not there's no excuse. Like that's what you're being hired to do. I think it's annoying if you've already shot the thing and in post they're like, oh, can we make a vertical asset, and that was never talked about. Then it's a bit different. But if
That
it's in there
happens.
from the
That happens.
yeah, if it happens, I just say to the editor, do a 9:16 crop, and that is what it is. Like, but at the same time, I care about it, so I will do what I can to make it look good. But thankfully, because I came in through a very doing it all myself way into the industry, like I know how to edit, I know how to make something look good in a different format to how it was shot. So, I have the tools to care about it and do something about it.
Yeah, I think an important point also there is the fact that if as a director you have started from different departments and you have seen different stuff, you are much more understanding of when you work with those people of what they have to go through, and you understand
Precisely.
the technicalities. So I find like the best directors understand the technical side of things. Like
For sure.
because they can ask good questions, they can ask the right questions to the people they work with.
Precisely. And I feel like that's where I sit. Like I'm not any of the other roles individually, but I've done enough of them to be able to have the technical conversation. And like, yes, you might lean on these other heads of department to know the absolute nitty gritty of it, but I know, and you as a director, it's your job essentially to know enough about each role to be able to have a high level conversation with each of those people about their job.
Yeah.
So yeah, as a director, like yes, we all come in different backgrounds and we're all at different stages, but it is on you to learn how to have those technical conversations. 100%.
Absolutely. So Henry, you said about about the social assets in 2025 onwards, you need to be on them and you need to be fine with them. What about AI?
AI, man, I don't know. Like I'm already so bored of the AI chat, and I think that's really indicative of where it's at the moment. I love technology, so I'm interested in tech, but at the same time, the AI is just right now feels like slop. Feels like regurgitated slop. So I think it's cool. I think it's astonishing how quickly generative AI in particular has progressed. I think in our industry, I think it's amazing as a visualization tool, as a here's an idea, let me make an image that comes up with it. But when people are like, "Oh, look at this AI Coke commercial," I'm just like, ugh. Makes me feel not even contempt. It just makes me feel nothing. So like, that's a sign that it's not on our
Yep.
heels just yet. But I'm not
Yeah.
naive to what it is. Like, the world and the industries are constantly changing. Like, you do have to be adaptable, but you also have to be um, confident in like what you do and the human story. And I think that's the thing with AI. Like, yes, it might be able to make nicer and nicer images, but understanding the nuance of human condition and world culture and artistic expression is, I think,
Yeah.
decades off, if ever even possible.
Yeah. I think Gavin, what you say there about the previous, yeah, I think more of the back end process of AI and how you can speed up or give directors resources for their pitch. Because to be honest
Yeah,
with you, not all directors have the luxury of being under a production company that for their pitch they might provide them a visual researcher and a treatment designer and a storyboard artist, etc., etc. So it levels the field a bit more,
precisely.
which is fair.
And I
Um,
see actually, sorry, the comments, some of the comments are anonymous for me, but this most recent comment, AI as a tool in the process, amazing. AI as the end product, not great. I completely agree. Like, AI to me, I think the use case will come with this like tedious, repetitive stuff that we have to do. Like, oh, if you need to rename a ton of files but have them in different order, or that, stuff like that. These kind of processes, transcribing, like if it can do that really well, then fantastic. But yeah, AI as the creative engine and as the artist, yeah, it's
also,
I'm not
yeah.
I'm not blown away yet. Like, I'm not against it.
Same.
Everyone go do your thing, but like if whatever.
Yeah. No,
I'm bored of it.
I fully agree. So Henry, when you don't work, how do you keep yourself progressing? What do you do? Is it just pub, or is it something
No, not
else
at
to keep
all,
yourself going?
bro. I mean, it's hard, and like, as much as I said, separate your sense of self-worth from the work, like, that's definitely a process. I have put in the work to like know myself and work through the issues I needed to work through. What do I do, man? I love the things I love, and I consume them with joy, and I do them with joy, and I think that's super important. Like, don't just sit around thinking about adverts. You'll go crazy. Like, you if you're only taking input from stuff that's in your realm, you're never going to make anything different. So, man, I love it all. I read a lot. I watch a load of great TV and movies, and so does my partner. And it's like something we share a lot of joy in, and because we do it in a way that feels intentional. I love basketball. I love playing, watching, listening,
Nice,
thinking
we're on the
about
same page
basketball.
there. I'm a huge
Yeah,
NBA fan.
it's
I'm a
like my
huge NBA
lifelong
fan.
passion, if I'm honest. But I love that that's separate to this work. I love
Yeah.
art. I like going to exhibitions. I like cooking. I love eating. I love traveling. We're lucky that my partner and I were both self-employed, and we get to travel when we can and when we want. And like, that's it, man. Like, live a life that's rich and wonderful, and filled with stuff that makes you want to do the work when it comes, not the other
Yeah.
way around.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it's real. The money side of it is real, and that's why I spoke about this at the beginning. Like, I sometimes go for months without working, and like the anxiety and stress not having that money brings is real. So don't be ashamed of, like, go and get some money, go make some money, go and do Deliveroo, or go and, like, I don't know, do whatever it is that's in your remit to do. Like, do not be ashamed of that, because you're never going to make anything for yourself if you're like behind on your rent and like so stressed out that you can't even think. So
Oh my
yeah,
God,
when I'm
that's
outside of work,
I
that's what I'm
love that.
doing, man.
I love that. I love because I think it's like as soon as the fact that you are a director doesn't mean you cannot be something else and that you pay your bills. Like,
Precisely.
and at the end of it's also like something very important for people out there. If you have a good year, don't spend it all. Don't be naive that the next year will be. I think like some people have a good year, they land a good project, and they feel like now I've cracked it. From now on, it only
That's
goes
not the case,
upwards. It
man.
never does. Like
I had
save.
Yeah, save that money. And I've had the same. Like, I did, for me, it feels like, in my experience, it's feast or famine. I'm either super busy and working a lot, or I'm going through lean times. And I've learned to, one, now not count the money until it's in the bank. Like, if I'm pitching on 5 projects and those projects combined might earn me £100,000, don't think about that money until you've got the project. Like, I'll be very honest, at the end of last year, I think I pitched on 3 or 4 things at once that together would have, I don't know how much it would have earned me, but it would have been like what I earned in the year again if I'd have won all that money, if I'd have won those jobs. And I didn't win any. I mean, I got one small job, but like, I didn't win any of the big ones. And like, yeah, it's depressing because you put in all that work and it's lean, but like, you got to find a way. You've got to find a way. And I don't mean like give up. Like, you've got to just find a way to stay afloat that works in your world. Like, I know what my world is, and I know the skills I have that I can sell. Like, I do treatment writing. Like, I write treatments for big time other directors. I do photography when I can. I license photos and footage. I was making a magazine a couple of years ago for the London Lions basketball team. Something that I've never done anything like that professionally, but it is within the remit of like storytelling and writing and photography. And like, you think about your skills, um, as skills and not like as a role, and that's it.
Yeah,
Kind of starts to open stuff up, but it's hard, man. Don't be ashamed to go and get a part-time job in a bar or in a shop, because
absolutely,
you've
absolutely,
got to pay the
100%.
bills.
I have. Do you? If we go back, I have a couple more questions, and then I
Yeah, man,
think,
I have time. It's all...
Gavin. By the way, I think, because I don't want to open again the whole production side. I think I will let Henry on his own time get back to your comment
Yeah,
later on,
by the
because
way,
I think
anyone, send me a message on LinkedIn, I guess, or an email. My email is publicly out there. If you have any questions, I'll try and get back to you. But I'm just one of
perfect.
many,
Thank you.
Everyone's got their
Yeah,
own way of doing
yeah,
things.
absolutely. Is it how do you feel about the production industry overall at the moment? Is it like,
Um,
obviously, as you said, I agree with you. It's a bit unstable for many reasons.
yeah,
But how do you feel
it,
in
it's
case it
unstable.
goes?
It is unstable and it's tough, and it's changing. Like, ever since I've been in the industry, which I'd say I've really properly been in the industry from like 2014, 2015, so about 10 years now. It's been constantly changing, and I don't think the industry has quite found its feet within that change. I used to do a lot of work in music, and it actually seems like the music industry has sort of found its feet in a new way. Whereas now the ads and production industry, after the explosion of content, the rise of like content creators, the death of cable TV and terrestrial TV, and the rise of streaming and blah blah blah. Like, there's so much going on. So yeah, the industry is unstable. The money at the moment is all in the Middle East and in the US. Everywhere else seems to be fighting for the scraps. But there's more opportunity than ever at the same time, because there is more video in our lives than ever before, by a long, long, long shot. And someone's got to make those videos. And yeah, you're right. A load of people might be outsourcing it to the wrong people, but the opportunity's there. And I think, as a director, if you want to make it in this state of the industry, you have to be entrepreneurial. You have to be a hustler. You have to sniff out that opportunity and not rely on anyone else to get you the work. But yeah, the industry as like a whole in London, I feel like we are in a bit of a down. But that's not to say there isn't great work being made. There isn't opportunity out there, because there is. But I do feel like in London, from sort of like 2014 to 2019, it felt like London was the cultural pinnacle of filmmaking. So much great work being made in the medium that felt kind of groundbreaking for the time. And I do feel like we let that slip. But everything comes and goes, and I think it's important to not see yourself as a product of a certain, like, what's the word? Just do your thing, and like chase the things that inspire you. Don't try and fit into a trend of filmmaking or what you think the industry is saying, because like realistically, by the time you've done the work and it gets noticed, the industry's moved on.
Yeah,
So yeah, but it is tough, and I see a load of comments in our chat here about like pitching and about finding experience and about making the spec ads and things like that. And it's like, if there was a straight answer, then we'd all just be doing it. And
yeah,
you've got to become comfortable in yourself and comfortable with developing your own tools to like learn to follow your own path, because it's hard. But also, just don't be afraid to reach out to people. I email so many people, and most of them don't reply. Like, legit. I would say if I send 100 emails, maybe like 5 would reply. But that is what it is. Like, reach out to people, be savvy. We've got so many platforms and everything at our disposal. LinkedIn is actually great. A lot of people diss LinkedIn, and I get why, because it's super corny. But at the same time, you've got all of these professionals and who they are and where they work. And yeah, their contact details might not be there, but if you've got someone's name and where they work, I'm sure you can get in touch with them. And so,
exactly, exactly.
as a director, put yourself out there. And I think I know I'm kind of rambling, but my one
No, don't
piece of
worry.
advice on this front would be intentional and be specific. If you're emailing someone, don't just be like, oh, here I am, give me money, because that's not going to work. You need to talk to people and want something from them and be specific about that thing. Like, I want to know how you, I don't know, but like just be specific about what you want. If you want a meeting with someone, or you want a call with someone, ask for that and say, here's some times I'm available. They probably won't reply, but if they do, then
Yeah,
make the most of it and go into that meeting knowing what you want to know from that person. I think that's really
absolutely.
important. There's no point in all of this because we have so much access to so much information and communication. There's no point in all of this. Let's just get together and chat the breeze. Like, yeah, do that in your social life and in your normal life. But if you're actually wanting to thrive in this industry or make your way, like, be intentional with how you move and how you use your time.
Yeah, and it's also like, I think, first of all, you answered my next question because it would be one piece of advice, and I think you gave a great advice there. I think it's be viable to other people. Like, look at
Yeah,
their website, see some of their work, and be like, oh, cool, because you have done this, I'm also doing this, blah blah. Like, find ways to someone to open the email, be like, okay, cool, that's viable for me. Like, unfortunately, we live in a world where people don't have the time to care about every
precisely.
other person who reaches in their inbox, especially the key decision makers you are reaching out to. If it's an executive producer, like, they receive so many emails, so many messages, and probably they are on so many jobs currently that they stress about. They might have a shoot
Yeah,
the next day or something like that. And because of that, because you don't know what is the stage you're going to cut someone in, if people ghost you, yes, it's not great, but follow up so
yeah,
many
exactly.
times. I
And
have never encountered in my life, because someone asked before, how do we start? I followed up with so many people. I have never seen someone in my life, whenever I'm reaching out kindly, coming back to me, be like, John, never follow up again. That it's
yeah,
very annoying.
precisely.
People who come back be like, so sorry, I didn't get back to you this whole, like, they feel
Precisely.
bad. Like,
I think the thing, and as a director specifically, it's your job to remind people you exist. That's it. Like, it's your job, like, whether that's you posting on social media or messaging people, emailing people, remind them that you exist. And also, when you reach out to people, rather than just saying, here's my website, that's it, say, here is this project I've done, and I think, for this reason it fits in with what you're doing. Give them a thing or a couple of things to watch, because, like, unless you have a super intentional website, but even then, like, give someone a
yeah,
link, a one link they can click and watch a thing. Don't make them
yeah,
do the work for
yeah,
them,
exactly. No,
and be
absolutely.
impressive. Present your work in a way that makes you feel confident about yourself, and use, in all this downtime between pitching, make your website look great. Like, make your LinkedIn profile look great. Like, it's not hard. I mean, it requires time and effort and taste, but so does the job of being a director. And so,
Yeah,
like, you have all these resources at your disposal. Even if you can't afford a website, make a sick Instagram that really represents who you want to be as a director. There's so much that's free. It's actually overwhelming, and just use
yeah,
those resources. Don't pay
absolutely.
for anything until you have to.
Exactly. And keep, like, one tip, I don't remember the name unfortunately, but one tip I said, I heard before from an executive creative director at TPWA, it was like, keep only your very best work. Like,
For sure.
some people believe that putting A-rated work and C work, the A-rated will stand out because you have C work. No, it will not stand out. It will be dragged down to B and
Only
C.
your
Like,
best.
if it's three videos, it's three videos, it's fine, but put only those three. Like, people need to
Yeah.
trust that whenever you deliver, you will deliver up there. There is no opportunity of delivering
And
below that.
also, use your platforms to display the type of work you want to be doing. Like, I do a massive variety of work. Most of it is not, I mean, it's out online, but it's not immediately accessible on my platforms.
Yeah,
So, think about that. What do you want to be doing, or what are you most proud of, and, like, display that stuff. However, be organized. Like, I also have an archive of everything, like, semi-relevant that I've done, that is, like, searchable and indexable with download links. So, I have a massive side of my work that I do that's, like, more branded content, maybe talent driven content of just, like, someone in a studio being funny, or little challenges or whatever, stuff like that. It's not right there in the commercials tab on my website, but I have it ready. So if I actually did just get an email yesterday from a production company that is pitching on a content piece for a brand I've worked with a couple of times already, and I was able to go into my archive and be like, one, okay, producer, here's the whole archive, but here are some videos that I think work for this, and let them download and send them. Like, that's all about being intentional. And it's only more recently that I truly learned the value of that, because you're trying to get yourself on and you want to show, like, I've done all this stuff. No one is going to go on your website and watch all this stuff. They're going to maybe watch one thing. So it's just as much also about the look and how you present yourself, and make sure that look is consistent with the type of work you want to be doing.
Because also, like, the people who are going to hire you on a job, they have to be able in their mind to attach you to something, that whenever that something comes in, you are the first on top of mind. Because otherwise, there are so many creatives, directors, producers on my side out there. Like, if you're known for everything, they will not remember you for something, because it's but no, I absolutely get that. Henry, so that was amazing. I want to be respectful of your time, and I know we sat here longer than we were supposed to. So thank you so much for your energy. How can people find you, learn more about you, hire you, hopefully?
Hire me. Please hire me. I mean, so I like maintain and design my own website, henrydean.co.uk, which is like the showroom. It's where I keep the best stuff, and my contact details are there as well. I mostly, for social media, Instagram, I'm at Henry with 12 H's in front. But if you search Henry Dean, you'll find me. LinkedIn as well, I use and have been making a bit more of an effort to use a bit more proactively. You can find me floating around the internet, man. Like, just shoot me an email. I'm so online. I've been online since I was like 7 years old. I was early on the internet, so I have a trail that runs deep. But at the same time, like, I'm big on trying to support and help other people do this kind of work when we can, because why not? I just remember being so desperate when I was starting out, and still feeling so desperate in other ways now, So, like, if I can give 10 minutes of my time to help someone, or if I can put someone in touch with somebody, I can. So that's it. But, like, if there's a couple other questions you want to, like, quick fire go through now, we can. It's up to you. I have a little bit of time. Because I actually see this question from Gavin. It just, as I was speaking,
which is it?
Is it worth doing separate show reels for areas such as automotive?
Fair. Okay, cool. Let's do a quick fire on questions in case anyone has before
quick fire to that one, Gavin. Because I actually do have quite an opinion. A show reel in the traditional sense, which is like more of a sizzle reel, like clips of just the best shots from all your stuff, for a director is irrelevant, because you're getting hired to tell a story. So you need to show completed films, whether that film is 15 seconds or 15 minutes. So a show reel that is just a sizzle reel, like a highlights edit, as a director, make it if you just want to, for yourself, something to play on your website, but it's not going to win you a job like it might would for a DP, or it might would for a colorist. But even then, people are looking for whole stories. However, like I said before, in your archive or however you share your work, here is, I mean, realistically, if you want to be a commercial director, for instance, automotive is a very specific niche, and people that do car ads tend to, maybe not absolutely exclusively, but they'll pretty much just do car ads. And same with like fashion and beauty. Like, so these niches, once you really get into it, you sort of tend to find your way. So depending on where you are in your career, I think, categorize them on your website maybe, but often having too many categories and being too broad is actually
I think you don't get to see it because I'm on the LinkedIn platform as well, Henry. But Gavin is actually listed, at least on LinkedIn, as drone pilot and aerial cinematographer. So I assume for something more visual-led, for that, something like that, then yes, it might make more sense. But if for any reason you want to switch into directing, then I think the tip you gave is much more important.
Yeah,
I think
people want to see the whole film.
Jonathan is asking, I cannot see this comment on our chat, but he's asking if you're ever open to young directors shadowing you.
Yeah, for sure. I actually just had Asme, a young woman, shadow me on the last project I did. and I'll be transparent with you, the last shoot I did was in November, so that just shows you the amount of quiet time there is. But she shadowed me. I was looking for someone. I think it can be super useful if you are serious about it and you're like coming to learn. And I also did it with no expectation that she's not gonna like help. She's not working. She wasn't getting paid. She was fully there to just observe and be present and ask questions. So it's not always appropriate on every job, because there's more often than not, if you're like moving around a lot, it's not really appropriate. Sometimes the crew just has to be inherently small for logistical purposes. But on that one, we were shooting with some pretty big name talent in a massive vacant office space. So there's a ton of space. We're all in one location. Lots of fun setups. So yeah, it was appropriate. So yeah, I think on set for sure. I see the comment that says behind some of the pre-production process.
I think that's a bit more
Yeah, that's
tricky.
harder because it moves
That's
so
tricky.
quickly and it's very
Yeah.
reactive. It's just like, oh, okay, I've
Yeah.
got to make a shot list now. And like I work from home and I like working from home, and so it would add another thing of like, maybe if if it was like a bit more of a long-term organized thing, but it's hard because you said an assistant to pitching process. Well, that's a whole industry. Lena, my partner, is a fantastic creative researcher and treatment designer. She's one of
That's
the
a
most,
great duo. That's a
yeah, I know,
great duo.
power couple. But she's one of the most, she's one of the most creative and inspired people herself. She's also a filmmaker
Yeah.
and artist in her own right.
Yeah.
But that is a whole side of things. So like realistically, there isn't much room for more other people because it's such a quick and streamlined process. However, I do think like sharing treatments is fine. I actually asked my friend Sasha, who just released it's coming out, but there's a great movie called The Last Swim. I think I might have got it wrong. Sasha Nathanli. He and the years ago, as he was like putting all these movies together, I actually asked him for some examples of feature film decks, and he sent me a couple, including the one for this film they've just made, and that I found super useful. So you might not be able to come along for the ride, but I'm sure directors don't just ask a random, because they're not going to just send you their treatments randomly. But once you have like a relationship with someone, I'd be happy sending a young director a couple of my treatments.
Absolutely. I think a couple of important stuff there is, one, if a person, most people in the sense that's very nice. If they get you to shadow them, they would like, they value that. They would like to be able to allocate time to teach you stuff.
For
So
sure.
if a project feels like a head, like a bear on the shoulders for them, they don't want to drag you without them. Because for you as a person who shadows, it might be absolutely fine to just be around, but for them, they want to actually invest time and teach you something properly. And they will have your concern. You know what I mean? It's like taking care of someone. You have that concern all the time.
And you know what? Often also, sometimes the runners or more junior people on set are like very green, very young, not necessarily young, but very new.
Yeah.
And like I always try and make time to chat to people and the camera trainees and the whole crew. And like often people will just like ask you questions about what you're doing or about being a director. And like if you have the time, give people the time. Like I'll always give someone the time. But when I had the shadow on the last shoot, Asme, it was the first time I've had it in a more formal, structured way, like her on the call sheet as a shadow. And it was great. I had like an hour call, maybe not an hour, but I had like a long call with her the day before and just like went through some of the prep and everything. I shared the shot list and some of the prep docs with her. And then on set, I sort of more or less kept her by my side and was like, look, if there's some downtime, ask me questions. And she did. And so we had a few like quick but sort of deep conversations throughout the day. And I tried to involve her. But also it was nice for her to also talk to all the other people and be around.
Yeah.
So I think if it's in a more organized formal way, it can be great. And maybe, Jonathan, that's when you can get a look in at some of the pre-production stuff as well, if you're shadowing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. Guys, I think we can go for on and on and on forever. Out of only respect for people who joined this from very early on and they don't want to feel like they're missing something, I think we'll end there. And then, both me and Henry, I'm sure we are going to post and share a lot of stuff online, and there's going to be plenty of opportunity to share our experiences. As he says, and he's absolutely right. We don't know everything. We just know what we experience. So this is just what we share. Henry, thank you so much. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for
No
your
problem.
honesty. I know
Yeah.
you shared some stuff that some people would not, be open to share,
Yeah,
because and I think the way you don't hold any negative, any unhealthy ego in you, it's really admirable for me, and I
you
love it.
have
I
to,
thank you very much.
yeah, you have to relinquish that in order to be a good person and to just get by. Because whoever said the stuff about burnout and mental health, it is very real. And I haven't always been this at one with myself. So do the work, understand yourself, and then you can make great, great art.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and hopefully we can do it. We get to do it again in the future very soon.
For sure, man. Yeah, we'll do the revisit. Maybe my whole opinion
Amazing.
will have changed in a couple of years' time.
Well, hopefully, mate. That shows progress.
Fantastic.
Mate,
Well, thank you so much,
thank you
everybody.
very much. Have a lovely evening. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Oh, that was amazing, everyone. I'm doing always those type of things for me to learn, first of all, and I learned honestly so much. It's like, just so you know, it's full transparent. I've never worked with Henry before. Like, I just love his work, and that's why I got him on this one. And it's so positive to see that his energy. I mean, it's like, it's good to have we work with and talk with honest people and people who value people before anything else. Um, so yeah, I think one last thing to say there is that I think Henry mentioned as well. If you're a director, please communicate with other directors. There is, it's a very healthy industry. Try to find your circle, exchange opinions, exchange experiences. Don't go on this alone. It can be very difficult at times. Um, so yeah, thank you very much, everyone. We will try to organize something for next week. Um, Similar to what Henry said, the industry is very fluctuating at the moment. I have some jobs, so if I'm not able to make it, I will let you know. But you will see on Monday on my announcements if we have an episode next week. Thank you very much. Have a lovely afternoon. And for anyone who watches this on playback, the streaming platform has an issue with LinkedIn, so sometimes it freezes. So I'm ending this now. If the stream carries on in longer, it's just a still frame of my face. So thank you very much. Bye.